Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon Wahon Pickups.
Hey everybody, it's me, Todd, Novak. We are super happy to have you along for this show of the Guitar Knobs podcast, where we focus on, Tony, what do we focus on?
We focus on the boutique builders from around the world. That could be builders of guitars, of amplifiers, of pedals, sometimes of cables,
Yes.
sometimes of pedal boards. We cover all the, some you know and some you don't know.
Yeah,
And
most of the ones you don't know.
And after you listen to the podcast a few times, you get to know some of these people.
That's right. So we are going to wait. That means we have somebody on the line. We have somebody very special on the line. Who are you?
Who are you?
Well, my name is David.
And my name's Justin.
Excellent. And you are from?
We're from Covenant Cables.
Covenant Cables in the house, in the house.
That's
tonight
right.
For the podcast. Yeah, we're really excited to talk to these guys. Covenant Cables, most of you have probably seen them on Instagram. That's where our guitar world mostly circulates. So, or maybe you know them from other means, and that's fine. And maybe you don't know them at all, which may be arguably better, at least for this show, because then you can learn all about them. So maybe not arguably better from their business standpoint, but you can change that. They make cables, and other kinds of cables. Anything else you guys make besides cables?
From time to time, make, I don't know, some coffee.
Make
played.
the cables.
Well played.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just cable making in day out. We also are involved, like, in our community doing, like, sound rental, like PA rental, and, like, engineering. So some of us do that.
We also recently started doing like pedal board setups.
Oh, nice.
That's true.
Good.
hmm
Perfect.
And that's it. I mean, it's nothing amazing.
Well, I mean, if you have a great cable, that can be amazing.
It's
How's
true.
that? How's that? Look at me selling your product. All right.
I know. It's very effective.
Let's get into
Sales just spiked.
I know. My gosh. Let's get into what's going on in our. Well, no, we're going to touch on a little bit of news. Yes, some news coming up.
Winter NAMM is around the corner. Not really, but kind of, sort of.
It's weird because summer's now over, and I don't believe it.
We're getting emails now.
Yeah, the planning stages are coming. Deadlines are coming next week.
That's correct.
Get housing and passes. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's busy over there.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
Are you guys going to Winter NAMM?
I don't know. Since we're like in Atlanta, it's like the other side of the country, and we usually like to drive. So we've been at Summer NAMM multiple times to just go and hang out and meet up with friends. And this year may be the year we go to LA.
Yeah, you should go. Hell, out of Atlanta, you can catch a direct flight to LAX.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Oh, is that it? Okay, is that the way to go?
LAX
Okay.
or go to Orange County.
You know that little tiny airport you guys have there in Atlanta?
Yeah. You might have seen
Are
it.
you being a little sarcastic?
Yeah.
Just a tad. That's a big one.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll see you there. Tony, what's going on in your music world this week?
Well, I just got a notice that my neck will be delivered tomorrow.
Oh, excellent.
So this is the one-piece Telecaster neck with black block inlays.
Oh, man. That thing.
It's going to be a cool project. So
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll let you know how. Now he'll see it. He says that now, but once he sees it, he's going to be, you think you could order me one of these?
Nah,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of black inlays. The black block inlays.
Well,
All right.
To
Well,
each-
I am.
to each his or her own.
Yeah.
If they were in the shape of stars, maybe.
Or mudflap girls.
Yes.
Yeah,
But they're not.
12th fret mudflap girls. You could do that. That
anyhow.
would be so tacky.
That would be.
Yes.
Anyways, we're awesome. I don't know. Depending on, maybe you have that and that's some.
It's probably going to look good. It'll probably look
I
good.
guarantee it.
Yeah, it's going to look
Okay.
smoking. Jared.
There are a lot of things I want to get to and finish, these little projects.
Yes.
Like the 2 Jazz Masters I have going on. I did see the bodies at the paint shop they're at. I did see the one neck, but this week what's going on, I'm having tooling made for a couple of new winders, and it's very exciting.
Good.
They're more of a robotic, computer controlled winder type thing for my shop. And I know, I'm sorry, it's not totally guitar.
I mean,
it's really exciting for me. That's what's really got me jonesed up right now, is getting this tooling. So yeah, that's going on with me right now.
How is that will that increase your capacity to do stuff, or are you just going to have it set up to do specific jobs?
It'll be, right now there's a lot of manual setup, and this will alleviate a lot of the manual setting up. You'll touch a few buttons and the machine will know what to do, instead of, putting in physical different size cams and, different manual setup. And it will eventually save me a lot of time in one day.
But while you're doing, that one's winding, you could go to the next machine.
To the other machine and do all that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. David, how about what's going on in your music world this week?
Honestly, most of it is just making cables every day. Justin here next to me, more musical guy now these days, and just a lot of times just focusing on business. But at most, my guitar and pedal board go out when I go out to church, and then it just goes back into storage in our shop. It's really sad, honestly. And other than that too, just sometimes like this past Sunday there was a gig where Justin was actually playing, so I went out and supported him and a few other local artists.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
Always a good idea.
Cool.
Support the local artists. Support the local music.
Absolutely. So, at most, that's really it. Everything's music every day. We listen to it, but myself, play-wise, really, my guitar is really sad. It just goes on the shelf.
Is it gently weeping?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more than gently, but
I think our customers play with it more than he does.
Justin, how about you? What's going on in your music world?
Yeah, man. Like what David said, I just played a show at Eddie's Attic with I don't know if you guys know the artists, Gabe Bonduck, Melissa Polinar, Jeremy Passion, and Jennifer Chung.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're all YouTube artists. I think they're like the pioneers of the YouTube music industry, so to say. But I've been playing with Jennifer for a while. Other than that, I got to play a friend's custom guitar. If you guys know a company called Halcyon.
No.
Yeah, it's an acoustic guitar company.
Okay.
But it sounds incredible, and just like the dynamic range of the guitars. Wow.
That's like a whole different world than the box of, name brands that we know. I myself would love to get into the, boutique acoustic guitar world. Rather
a lot of makers out there, yeah.
For sure. Cool. Well, that's some fun stuff.
How about you, Todd? What's happening in your week?
I'm tearing apart my pedal board again. And
another Explorer?
Well, no, I didn't.
He's exploring that now.
But so because I got a new amp and I got a new guitar, the pedals are for my gig setup weren't playing so nicely, and so I had to kind of resort out some things.
Did you ever think about just plugging straight into the amp?
I did, and I even tried to just go like, what if I do a boosted signal from that? And it didn't have the. I'd have to turn it up real loud, right? So, and I was like, well, can't do that. Right? It is just it's too loud. So, but that's okay. I'll use it as a pedal platform. I still get killer tone out of it. It's the Super Black Magic, which I've mentioned. So I'm not going to talk about that. But I did borrow Tony's EP booster, which I was very, I tried that one before on a different amp and I did like it, but I just haven't had one on for a long time. And I thought, well, I'm going to try this and see if I can get some extra oomph out of the signal and see what happens. And I really liked it. So I think I might be on the prowl for a little EP or something like that. And I know that there's just a million boost pedals out there, and I have my eyeball on another one coming out soon. And we'll see what happens there. So that's my stuff. Now, how about some of this stuff?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor.
All right. David Park from Covenant Cables. Give us your 4 on the floor.
The 4 on the floor. For me, they're before Strymon was Strymon, it used to be Damage Control. I don't know if you guys remember that. But they had these gigantic pedals with like tubes in them, and they glowed. And honestly, I don't even think the tubes were connected in the circuitry at all.
Right.
But,
That's awesome.
But it's sweet, yeah, because there's tubes in it, you know. And there's this one thing called the Liquid Blues. It's supposed to be an overdrive that they made, Damage Control Liquid Blues, and I've had it for probably a decade now, and it's been on my board. And it's an overdrive that has a compression built in and a clarity knob that I'm not exactly sure what it does. I think it's just a mix knob, but it's something that I absolutely need and have depended on for kind of my compression and bass clean tone. So that's the first.
Nice.
I think the second would be the Tim overdrive that I have. I think it's a classic. It does everything I want it to, and I'm used to, and now I'm a slave to it. There's nothing else. I guess there's clones, but because the clones don't look like it, I just need the Tim at this point.
Is that something that you leave that's always on?
No, actually. So the Damage Control is the one that is always on the Liquid Blues.
Okay.
And the Tim, oftentimes I do leave it on for the most part, but sometimes when I do need to get really clean, I turn it off. But you know, with the 2 stages that it does have, it's still pretty versatile, and you know, it just sounds great.
Awesome.
To boost the signal. So
You've had that overdrive. One for an awful long time, or?
Yeah, all these pedals at this point I've had for at least 8 years, and
oh wow,
they've stayed there, and I've gotten stuck with them. I've gotten too used to it, and even if there's other pedals that might sound better, the moment I get it, it doesn't do what I'm used to. So I just go back to the Tim.
There's something to be said for like not having to worry about that stuff and just playing. Yeah.
Either I got boring and old, or I found something, you know, worth having. So that would be my I guess go to overdrive. And then the last 2 things I would have is the Boss DD20 as my delay. I've also gotten used to the way that thing sounds. I've swapped in and out between having, you know, Timeline or Line 6, the green thing.
The DL4.
Yeah, the DL4. And all sorts of other delays, and they all sound great and pristine, but the DD20 has this girth to it, especially on the analog setting, and it can start punching out kind of a tone that I've gotten used to. So the DD20, I like it. Presets on it are really intuitive and simple. You just scroll through them. So that would be my delay.
Okay.
And I think for my last on my 4 on the floor would be the Boss RV5. And a lot of these are the go-to praise and worship pedals. So I'm just a product of the system, I think, and the culture. But the RV5 has that modulate setting. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's another thing.
Super familiar with that. I think Tony is, but
yeah, I've used those.
Right. Yeah. So especially for those guys that like to play with delays and reverbs, the RV5 that Boss had, it's a very iconic, standard pedal that a lot of people have had. So probably my last one.
Cool. All right, sounds like a solid little board there. An old board.
A good board.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It was cutting edge when I got them. So.
Cutting edge.
It really was.
All right, Justin, how about yours?
I remember a long time ago I got this pedal called the Hot Cake by Paul Crowther.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's crazy because like this small little pedal that goes anywhere from like super clean boost to like fuzz territory overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super transparent. Sounds super great. I regret trading it for a pair of in-ear monitors. And I'm actually trying to get another one once I can save enough money. But that would be the first one. The second
they pretty
one
hard to find?
I feel like they're on Reverb. I think I got it for like $120 or something.
Oh,
back then.
That's a doable. Yeah.
Yeah, but then now they're all up at like 180, and so I'm just like, no, yeah. That would be kind of my first. My second would be there's a company called Rockworks, and they have a little clone of a of a Klon Centaur called the Light OD.
Okay.
I've been using the version 1 for a very long time, and yeah, just love the mid hump.
Is that an always on thing?
Not really. I'll use it more so as a clean boost / like a gain boost kind of thing toward the end of my chain.
Okay.
And as a lead boost if I need to, depending on the context of whatever kind of music I'm playing.
So you keep the overdrive pretty low, it sounds like.
Or I'll knock up the gain if I'm playing like lead solos. It's just a very versatile pedal, you know?
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And then third one would probably have to be the Strymon El Capistan. I think, nothing beats that tape machine. It's just super clean, super awesome.
That's made its way, I believe, on the show before. Yeah.
What about a real tape machine, though? Can it beat a real tape machane?
Can't lug those things around, you know. Like I would love to like carry like a Echoplex to a venue,
an old tube one too.
Yeah. So the El Cap and probably my fourth. It's hard to say. Probably the Cali 76.
Oh yeah, that's made it on
Compact
as well.
Deluxe. Yeah. It's
that is a highly regarded pedal.
It is incredible. Yeah, I've never looked back at other compressors.
Is that something that you've had for a long time, or is that?
Yeah, it's been on my board for about 2 years now.
Okay.
I've tried the Ross compressor, the Dynacomp, the JHS modded one, and also the Diamond compressor, which is optical. But of all things, it's just super silent. Because with compressors, it raises the noise floor a lot, in my opinion. But with the Cali 76, I found that it's super quiet, super transparent. You can go anywhere from like super squished to like just barely being there and just leave it on all the time just to equal out your levels.
Nice. Yeah, the old compressor game is, I've dipped in and out of that, and I haven't figured out the voodoo, which is hilarious because we've had at least 2 episodes only on compression or focusing heavily on compression. And yeah, maybe someday I'll get there. Maybe with some Tony can help me out with that. Maybe someday. All right. Well, thanks for sharing your 4 on the floors, dudes.
2 solid boards.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get into finding out a little bit more. Well, actually a lot about the Covenant Cable Company, how they got started, and just, why they matter. Dudes, you ready?
Let's do it.
Good. Do you guys need like some Red Bull or anything like that, or?
Oh, do we sound tired?
Red Bull gives you wings.
Let's dig into this. You guys make some pretty sweet guitar cables as well as patch cables. I would love to find out how you got started in deciding that this is what you were going to do. Where did you kind of start out in music?
Oh, in music.
Yeah.
I'm
assuming that led you to this, right?
That's exactly what led me to it. Having played for so long and crawled on the gear page like every day of my life for about 5 years. I started out just playing in church, a lot of electric guitar kind of stuff, and you start gaining pedals. You find some in the closet, but eventually, somewhere along the way, you want to look cooler and sound cooler. So,
were there things that you were using at the time that weren't suffice, or like? You
mean like with cables, or
yeah? From
the longest back I can remember, I just picked up whatever was there. It was probably the last thing I was thinking about, because if I had $30, I would save it towards a pedal, and. If anything, I remember I went to like Sam Ash and I saw patch cables there for like $6 each. I remember in high school thinking that's robbery, is way too expensive.
Yeah.
And now I'm selling patch cables for like double, triple that price. But at that age, it wasn't something I cared about. But definitely once I was starting to get much nicer pedals and you start hearing all this noise and tone loss, then that's where it started to matter. And I remember the first set of like kind of high quality cables I picked up was like just a door gels, like solderless, and there wasn't really much else at that time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah,
you hit on an
the first
important
time.
thing. I mean, I think for the first 5 years of my gigging experiences, I think I had one cable. I can't remember if it was any good or not. I mean, it must have been okay, but the idea of spending more than $15 on a cable was like, I mean, that was insane, especially if you're young and you don't have all that money, you know?
Yeah, I
Right.
think I spent around $15, $16 for it. Lasted me like 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
and I gigged with it every time.
That said, I'm fairly certain I sounded like garbage. So I don't,
And some things never change.
yes, but that's not entirely untrue. I will fall on that one. Yeah. So it is worth, you know, if you're just playing completely loud, out of control music through moderately decent or less than good gear, it probably doesn't matter a whole lot. But as soon as you start saying, I want to get some better gear, I want some clarity, I want some a little bit better definition, things do start to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you guys come in. So how about you, Justin? How'd you fall into all this mess?
Yeah, I think same thing. I was playing at church a lot, and then it's been about 2 years now since I started wanting to do music seriously, professionally, or whatever. I think in the boutique industry wise, that started for me like in high school, where I started like going from a DD5, and then the next year I have like a whole setup with like a timeline and a big sky and like all this stuff. I just like all the money that I got just like went into that. But at the time I was using those like what is it, like those Monster, the live
Monster
wire.
cable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like everyone said, no one ever thinks like, oh, like guitar cables make such a big difference to your tone. You know, everyone always looks at the bigger things, but started realizing you get like 50 feet going into a whole system, you start losing the quality of your signal like crazy. Once I like swapped it out for like lavas, I think that's when I first started realizing, oh, like different cables actually do affect how signals change. Yeah, I mean, since then, started to grow interest in cables. And I think like the way cables look, it can be like a visual thing too for some people. Just the fact that like people post pictures of their pedal boards and how neat and organized they are with what kind of cables it is. It's all zip tied up and how neat it is. Rave over that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Oh, it's a thing for sure. And it's always weird when you see somebody that just has them old school daisy chains just like hanging out on the floor and stuff. And it's, if you're really into the you know, the pedal fetish, so to speak, it's unnerving.
Yeah.
Something
or even worse when it's a big barefoot, like some big hairy big toe stepping on something, and you're just like, oh man, why now I can't unsee that. Anyways, you just mentioned something that I think is probably at the forefront of everybody's mind when they're considering cables, which is how does it affect tone? You know, all the variables like length, materials, connectors, those are things that most people aren't really thinking about quite so much. But obviously, if you do go buy a cable, or if you're spending time on Instagram, or you're seeing other musicians and you're noticing all their other gear, cables do play a big part. And not knowing why would definitely prevent somebody from actually buying a better cable. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
Oh yeah, sure. I would like to preface this with most people and say like cables is not new technology. They're not rocket science. So getting the best kind of cable possible has already been achieved since a while ago. So a lot of stuff can be snake oil or can sound a little, I don't know, gimmicky, but I think cables, I mean, it's pretty simple as in what they affect, the way it can affect your tone, the way it can affect your noise, like the shielding. And then the third thing is it can affect whether it's going to work or not, like the durability of the cable. So as long as you take care of those three things, then you have a great cable. And it's not that hard to get that these days, especially with the fact that it's old, kind of old technology, You just need someone who knows what they're selling and knows what they're doing when they solder. I think that would be kind of the main reason why you would. I mean, you want the most tone, you want the least noise, and you want the longest durability.
So let's break those down a little bit. You mentioned
Sure.
noise and tone. You mentioned shielding. You mentioned connectors. I think it's also safe to say, at least on the one that you sent us, is that there's a protective covering around it. I would love to find out what your take on why does my guitar cable need to help out with noise and tone?
Well, just like probably all of us starting out, we probably grabbed whatever available cable there was. And most of those that are just readily available for like $5 or $10, whether it's live wire or just unbranded, they're typically made just where the copper is good enough, the insulation is good enough, and the capacitance is good enough for you to just at least hear a signal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times corners are cut for those, whether it's the people working in those factories, a lot of them aren't musicians. They don't know what these cables actually go through, and they'll just do a quick solder, not really pay attention to how they're, crimping the cable clamp, and a lot of that can make the cable break easily. The sound also can change a lot depending on what kind of cable you're using, especially if it's longer than 10 or 15 feet. Then you start hearing some slight differences in the way the cable sounds. But
Why is that?
basically, there's a rating called capacitance. Essentially, like, it's a physical thing, and I'm not a full out expert on this, but all I know is because there's limits on, a signal to pass through a physical item such as a cable, it starts to lose a signal based on like how well it's made, I guess. And different cables have a different capacitance rating.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, the lower the capacitance is, the better your signal will stay the way it was originally intended to.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, there's different camps, I guess, who think on like the way to think about this, but from what I've seen, like the lowest you can get, at least with copper, is 20 picofarads per foot. That's kind of across the board. That's the best mankind has been able to accomplish. Maybe if you use like a solid gold cable, it might be a little different. But I think it's a little more expensive at that point.
Just a little bit. Although copper these days, I don't know.
Yeah, but with cables, you can pretty much know by the specs at least which ones will sound the best these days, especially when you're running a TS mono signal. It changes when you have a balanced cable, and the science of that is basically it can run much longer. But since none of our guitars have a balanced out, at least most of them don't, like it's running through cable, a physical thing, and the longer it is, the more it's going to get lost.
You had mentioned, at least with copper, are there other cable materials that are available, or?
I mean, I think the world uses copper for almost all cable applications, but there are some special companies that have employed just using like all silver or all gold, and those cables are like in the thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah, so there are gold and silver cables available?
There are.
Wow.
Surprisingly, I actually learned about this. Having been doing this for 4 years, I learned about this at the last Summer NAMM, and I couldn't believe my ears that someone would make a cable of solid gold.
Wow.
It's the Klon Centaurs of guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're like,
They probably use them in
wow.
music studios. I
Yeah.
imagine.
So what
I
you
don't
need
know.
is you need a dumble into a gold cable into a Klon into a 59 burst.
With the Strat that Jimi Hendrix was buried with.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know. It's either 10 or 50,000. I don't know. The
Wow.
price is kind of ridiculous, and
That sounds like something Bonamassa would do or something like that.
right.
Maybe.
And at that point, you can have the same effect by just running into an SGI box. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but
No.
it's just taking your mono TS signal and converts it into a low impedance like balance signal.
Oh, okay.
So balance runs, they can run for hundreds of feet
Right.
without losing any signal. So I think the whole gold thing and silver thing is definitely like I don't know, to say that you have it,
Sure.
Functionally, it's not that much.
Interesting. Now, when you're talking about the quality of the copper, is that something that you're actually able to control with your cables?
So me personally, I don't create the cable spools. I just order them from reputable manufacturers, and Most of our cable suppliers are in the USA. We also have Mogami Cable, which has been, all around for a long time, and it's great. But we also have cables made to a certain specification in the US, and essentially it's not just like a matter of copper, but the insulation around it matters a lot. How it's separated, like the shielding and the lead is separated.
Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to dive into the detail there, because this is a big one. When you're at the store and you're looking at the cables, and you're going like, well, should I get this $80 cable or this $16 cable? And on the back of one, it's like, oh, it's got all these things around and you're like, I don't know, is that good? I don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say, and that's the limit of what I know. Like, where essentially all I know, the number that I'm looking for is the capacitance on the cable.
I see.
And like I said, 20 is that magic number. Some people say 19, some others say 21 or 22, but that's the magic number that I'm looking for. Almost everyone's like completely like 99% braided or 95% braided shielding. But the main thing, especially that deals with your tone, is the capacitance, which is, like I said, 20 picofarads per foot. And aside from that, I'm not an engineer or scientist, so I'm not going to claim much more. From all the research I've done and just physically hearing the cables and dealing with them every day, that's really what matters most in my book.
I see. So you offer a couple different kinds of cables. Are those how do those differ?
So I would say most of our own signature cables, the ones we carry. One of our big suppliers is Bestronics in Chicago, and basically they just have great cable at 20 picofarads per foot, and essentially that's all we use for our own stuff. Aside from that, we have Mogami cable, which when you just feel it, like Mogami, does feel great. Like in your hand, like it just feels solid. The shielding is great. It won't, it's not gonna break after you twist it a bunch of times. But otherwise, like what we use personally is something that's made in the US. All our cable comes with the cable that we supply.
Is that the one that you sent to us? It has
pretty thin with the red sort of black.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the sheath. Yeah. That's a special, I guess, colorway we have. Is like kind of our flagship. We call it the Remnant. And something that's nice about the one that I sent you versus a lot of the TechFlex cables on the market is that, as you've seen, it's pretty like thin, like it's skinny. It's like low profile. And the reason why we did that is, with most other cables, they use the fatter instrument cable that once you put the TechFlex on, it's huge, and it kind of is cool when you're playing with it at home. But when you're packing up for gigs all the time and you want to fit a 25 footer into your guitar case, it's not going to happen easily with the TechFlex cable. So ours, you can easily fit a 35 footer in like the pocket of your guitar case or that. Right. So in terms of durability and quality of sound, it doesn't change because of TechFlex braiding that we have on top, and we haven't had any issues with returns. It was actually
let's talk about those connectors. Do you offer different kinds of connectors, and why do they matter?
Well, for the connectors, overall, sound-wise, in my opinion, they won't make much of a difference. There are people that have much better ears than me that will claim that they do, but we just have 3 connectors that are popular for our instrument cables. The 2 favorites are the Amphenol connectors and then the Neutrik connectors. They all have gold plating and a black body, so it looks cool, and we can talk about the gold plating in a second. But we also have Reen Neutrik connectors, which are kind of like the more entry-level ones, but they're still great. We use that on our kind of our standard cable. No, we do silent plugs, the Neutrik silent plugs, time to time when customers want them, but we just order those.
Interesting. At what point would I want a much higher quality connector? Is that based on the kind of music I'm playing, based on the kind of activity I'm doing?
When it comes down to it, it's about reputation. It just feels cooler to have Neutrik because it's more expensive and it's bigger. But honestly, the Amphenol are amazing. They look great and they sound the same in my opinion. I guess they're not exactly the same, but they're both great connectors. But when I guess especially if you gig out a lot and you're always like replacing your connector or throwing your cable around, the Neutrik one is a beefier, more solid metal connector. So that's good for those who tour and just shove a bunch of cable into a box. But otherwise, the M-funnel connectors are great.
Well, can we talk about the gold plating versus nickel plating is on the standard
Or
one?
chrome.
Right.
Or
Chrome.
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Oh
And
yeah,
the difference is there any difference?
Is there an
between-
audible difference?
Sure. I would say first, audibly, there is no difference.
Right.
Like it's just gold plating. Like if your connector was solid gold, that's a different story. But it would bend.
You'd be rich.
Yeah, you'd
it
be
would
rich.
probably be too soft
and
to work.
People will probably judge you more rather than think you're cool for having a solid gold.
That is probably true.
Yeah, so really, there's no difference other than the fact that it's gold. It's gold plated, so it looks cool. And to be frankly honest, with all the cables that I use, even personally on gigs for like sound rentals and things like that, they're still all gold plated. It's still about looking legit, I guess, and things like that. But if all you're concerned about is just audio, there's no difference.
Okay.
Well, that'll look good with your Les Paul custom with gold hardware.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
And yeah.
When you're talking about the sheathing there, so that let's explain that to those who don't know what we're talking about. So that is a braided cover. It's some kind of braiding, right?
Yeah, it's the brand name of it is called Techflex. It's like a nylon
Okay,
woven together.
right. So it's a woven nylon essential cover on your cables, so they will look and feel different than your standard rubber outer coating. Like a typical black rubber cable. They come in colors. And what is the main? Why would I want that on my cable?
The number one thing that it provides is durability. Since it's like a shield on top, a nylon shield, and
Just tension.
yeah, especially on is stress relief, especially on times where, like, let's say if you loop your cable around like your guitar strap,
Yeah.
it'll relieve the stress off the cable, because
Okay.
you can't bend it completely like 90 degrees.
Right.
And that's another thing. Like it tangles less because one, it's like slicker on itself. It won't like get caught and stuck like regular cables do.
Mhm.
So it's not tangle free per se, because obviously if you put in a knot, it's gonna knot up.
Yeah.
But in terms of handling it, like it's like slippery within itself, so it's easy to just get it untangled right away, and it stays somewhat firm, so it doesn't instantly become a tangled mess. So that's another benefit of having the braiding on top.
Does it wrap up faster at the end of the gig? That was always my least
I will
favorite
personally attest to yes, it does. Because
I can say that too. Yeah.
I'm always at gigs for not playing myself anymore, but I do a lot of like sound rental and engineering. So I'm bringing the whole system out and wrapping up like 50 cables at the end. I had some canary cable for the XLRs, which is great, but I realized how much I got used to the Techflex, how much faster. Like I said, the cable gets caught, like regular cables, they get caught on themselves.
Or like in between your fingers just because of friction.
Yeah,
Of rubber
yeah.
and like skin making
So-
contact. Yeah.
So it definitely is a much faster cleanup because it just coils on itself. At least if you know how to coil a cable properly.
Well, that's another question. Now, are there proper ways to coil regularly?
Don't wrap it
I'm
around your arm.
I'm leading it.
Yeah, if you wrap it around your arm, you're essentially gonna force it in a way that it is not going. So like the cable itself has a natural wind to it, I would say. And there's two approaches to wrap it. One is the in and out. Essentially, you're wrapping the cable inside and outside, like an outside loop, where it will come out well.
Yeah. So what was the old?
No time for the old in and out love. I've just come to read the meter.
No. Yeah. No. There's the overworked, underpaid. Overworked, underpaid. Is that the roadie rap?
Yeah, roadie rap.
Roadie wrap.
So explain why that matters.
I mean, the cable, it wants to coil in a certain direction. It just winds a certain way. So if you wrap it in any direction apart from that, it's gonna bend incorrectly, and it's gonna start breaking at that point if you keep doing it incorrectly. perfectly. And then it's just ugly on the ground when you lay it down. It won't be straight anymore.
Well, I guess isn't that if I recall correctly, the notion of the roadie wrap is that you are constantly changing the natural coil so that it ultimately does relax. Am I getting that right? Is that not true? That's not Nick. Tony's shaking his head at me like I'm a moron, which is 100% accurate.
I think a part of your statement is true. The cable is relaxing into its natural part, but I think if you're talking about the roadie wrap as in like doing it properly, then you're supposed to follow the natural wind and course of the cable.
Okay.
And it's something you could actually feel as you're wrapping it. Like it'll try to bend towards a certain direction.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter the size and like the diameter of how big your wrap is, but it just keeps wanting to go a certain way.
It's like no guitar cable is ever going to be like completely straight.
Right.
And so you just got to follow that curve.
I get you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I also had another question. The length of cable is always a weird kind of thing because that's when you typically get into the conversations about having to use buffers, et cetera, et cetera. From your opinion as cable builders, what is sort of like considering length of the cable, what matters?
When you're going from like your guitar into your first pedal, for the most part, I think 10 to 15 feet is like a good safe length. Anything longer, you really start hearing.
And that's into your board, right?
Yeah, into the board before any buffering. So that's at a high impedance signal. So when it's at the high impedance, it has a hard time going through cable like efficiently. And then once you get it through that buffer, it essentially it's like a zip file. It compresses it so it can be sent more efficiently through the cable. So that's how I would describe it.
Okay. And then how about coming out of your pedal board?
Out of the pedal board, it still does matter, but it helps when you do have a buffer. I would say 25 is fine. 35 is starting to push it. I personally use 35-foot cables because I'm too lazy to like use like SGI boxes, which is what changes it into a balance signal. But Justin might have some input on this because he uses those things.
I mean, basically, yeah. I start noticing a lot of degradation every 10 feet. That's kind of like my rule of thumbs. So at 10 feet, I feel like you have a pretty good signal and you're not losing too much of your high end or whatever people consider tone to be. And then once you start going into 20 feet, you lose a bit of that. 30 feet, you lose a little more.
These are all things that we all consider and that everybody that doesn't know about it is sort of like, well, I guess I'll just not know about that. So this, believe it or not, this is actually really helpful. So thank you.
Well, can we talk about the mystique or the legend of the curly cable?
Yeah, the coil cable.
Coil cables.
Yes.
I mean,
what would you like to know?
I would like to know everything.
I had my dad had one when he was in his band in the early 70s, and I used it too.
Well, I mean, it is definitely it has a high capacitance.
Okay.
Which right.
I guess Tony's going to tell us all about the curly cables.
I'm going to tell you about the curly cables.
Tell us all about it.
Well, no, I mean, I think at the time, like in the late 60s when they were pretty popular, they were going, it basically trimmed off a lot of high end. Like, Hendrix, you see all the pictures of him. I mean, he always had a curly cable.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was it brought his high end down enough so they could play super loud without it going totally bonkers.
It takes that much out?
Yeah. It's like a tone control.
Really?
It's like a tone choke.
Let's hear from.
Takes a chunk out. Yeah.
Is that what Covenant Cables concludes?
Do you concur?
It is a true story. I would agree. Well, I mean, it's a really long cable coiled to be short. So it just makes sense that it would basically be like a high cut on your tone. And a little bit of a low cut too.
A slight high cut. Like if you opened up the old, like the old stereos or the old ES330 models that had, the tone variations, they have the tone chokes inside, and your, EB3,
right?
Or
it's the whole the Veritone.
The Veritone, yeah, that thing's basically a choke, and it's the same thing except for it's got a lot more winds in that coil, And that really takes a ton of high end off, and which I don't like. But yeah, I
don't like it either. But
I just wanted to compare that to that cable, that coil cable.
Yeah, I mean, but I do see the appeal for some people because the tone since it's like as organic and analog of a tone cut as you can get.
Yeah.
Your tone can get beefier, especially on the low mids, and it gets chunkier to some degree. So I can see why some people like to do that, or if they especially have a really bright guitar for whatever reason, kind of one quick method they do. But I think most of the time people just use coil cables because they are coiled. They don't get all like sprout out on the floor. Take on it.
Can we quickly talk about, I know one of the offerings you have are solderless cables, which is probably one of the highest searched terms in the guitar world on the Googles. So enlighten us, if you will, about your solderless cables.
So our solderless cables are probably one of the most popular ones now on the market. The plugs are made...
Start.
Oh, thank you. But that's also saying that what we have isn't that special. I mean, everyone has this kit, and we're just basically having it too because there's some people that just wanted to buy it from us, and we talked to G&H, and they had us come in as a dealer as well. So we just have it there, and it's a great start for some people. Some people just start buying our instrument cables first, and then grab a pack of solderless. But yeah, it's made by G&H. The plugs, you can have them go straight out or angle them down. I don't really know why anyone would have them go straight out, but they have that option.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very small. They really are, and it's pretty simple to make.
Mm-hmm.
So these are kits that lots of different companies have or rebranded as their own.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point in time where we rebranded it ourselves, but we decided it's just easier to go with the tried and true name of G&H, and it's their official G&H kits. So
okay,
it's just something we have there because some people have asked for it time to time.
How about some of your other connectors?
I mean, if I can just kind of chime in a little bit about solderless. I know a lot of people can kind of like go into that route of hating on solderless cables because, it's just not consistent enough for me or whatever. But I think... well, given just the fact that you're able to take apart a plug and then use different cable lengths of all different sizes and swap out plugs for different cable lengths on the fly, I feel like it's an option that some people can have or use, given the fact that, I think solder can go a long way. But at the same time, I think this is just like a personal plug of just saying like solderless cables aren't as bad. As people give them.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if you do it wrong, it's going to really suck. But
that's usually the number one problem is just user error, and it's a part of life, I guess. Just user error. Yeah.
And speaking of that, do you offer any kind of warranty or guarantee on your cables?
We do lifetime warranty on all the cables that we make.
Mm-hmm.
The solderless cables, I guess you could return them after 30 days if you don't like it. But most people are decent enough to not scam us like that. So, like the solderless, people have it, and if they have trouble, then they can just sell it. A lot of times, like I said, it is some user error involved.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the cables that you make, though, because I think that's a pretty strong statement if you offer a lifetime warranty on them.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that typically work? If it fails, they send it back in, you get another cable? Or?
Yeah, so if the cable breaks for whatever reason, they I don't know, it fell out of their car or it just stopped working because they used it so much.
How about if you lose it?
If you lose it, if you have nothing to send us back with, then we can't repair nothing. So
Can we
That's how
quote
it
you on that? You
works.
can't
Yeah.
repair nothing.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it won't do.
No.
I'm sure it won't be that popular, but
I'm just yanking your chain there.
So
yeah.
you have a cable on here that's pretty interesting. The SP400 is that.
Yes.
What's that? That's an interesting looking one. It's a square box, a very slim square box. Tell us about that a little bit.
So the SP400s are kind of a newer plug that's been on the market in the last year or two. And there's a guy out in France, and I don't know his life story, but apparently I think something like he used to live in the States, but now he's in France, but he's a huge gearhead. And like at this point, the smallest like soldered kind of jacks you could use was like the Switchcraft style pancake. And those are still kind of beefy and big. They're much smaller than using like traditional right angle jacks. So that's what everyone's been using for the last like 30 years or 40 years or 1,000 years. I don't know. But you know, the square plugs, they really are much, much smaller. And the crazy thing is how much it sticks out from the jack itself is probably the number one kind of draw to it, is that it is a lot shallower than actually most solderless plugs too. Of course, the square body is a little bigger than solderless plugs in terms of width, but the amount that sticks out, it's really narrow.
But it's still smaller around than a pancake, isn't it?
Oh, it's much smaller than a pancake.
Yeah.
Overall length, width, the stick out, the height of the body. Yeah, it's definitely a lot smaller and it's lighter, so you could probably fit a whole extra pedal after redoing it.
Really?
A whole extra pedal, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild. So you can you get those in custom length?
You can. So the way our site is set up, you can see all the options that we have, and then there's a drop-down menu for each cable that has the different lengths that you need.
Nice.
And then you just pick it up, you know. And I was talking about this with Justin earlier, why we don't have like a custom, you know, cable building option where you have all these cool plugins and stuff, and you see like plugs changing in and out. Number one reason is because we don't have money to make that. but the number two reason is like when I search gear, I don't like seeing guitars or options where I want to see it all at once, you know, in front of me, and then I just like open a new tab for each one, and then I look through it, and I can pick out different lengths and see the prices like right away. Versus trying to like a whole separate cable each time, like
right
in building site. So that's how ours work.
Cool. I guess maybe last question for you regarding your cables. You know, you mentioned that this is technology that has, you know, been around for quite some time, just as far as like, you know, cable systems go. Do you see that changing at all in the near future, or?
I don't think we can change the cable much because I think everything's been done. If it can change, it's too expensive and not economical because the demand wouldn't want it. But I think in terms of like just signal transfer, wireless these days is getting better and better and more reliable. And who knows, maybe one day they'll have connectors as small as a square plug that transmit wirelessly.
Oh, that'd be
reliably. And that could be hundreds of years in the future, or it could be in 20 years, but
It's 2 months.
or next 2 months. But I really don't think it will, and I really hope not.
Well, that might affect your business a little bit, but
Maybe in trouble, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
But yeah, I don't think there's going to be much change.
Okay, solid. Well, dudes, thank you so much for sharing about sharing all the information about Covenant Cables, and really appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us and helping us out, and helping the viewers out there. You know, it's a lot of times when we're talking about this kind of stuff, we tend to look at it from we try to be educational, because everybody, even though we have the knowledge of certain things, there are loads of people who are just joining, who are just getting their feet wet into the guitar world, who have been in for a long time and still don't know that stuff, you know, which, you know, I love learning new things, and I appreciate that. So thank you for sharing your time. we're going to get into.
Would you rather?
He insists on doing the tremolo thing. I don't get it.
Because it's
really
natural.
impressive. I thought you were about to say because it's nasty. Like awesome. It's pretty good. Yeah.
So everybody here, would you rather is pretty cool this week because it's about switches. So you're at the guitar shop where they're custom making you a guitar, and you have a choice in your custom guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go with the Gibson 3-way toggle switch,
Mm-hmm.
Gibson style, I want to say, because it's where you see them?
Yeah.
Or are you going to go for the lever action that you see, on Fenders?
On a Telecaster.
That's right.
Specifically?
Telecasters.
Well, that's a three-way, yeah.
Okay.
Or vintage
So
Stratocasters also had them.
Okay.
3 ways.
Yeah. All right. So does it matter where it's located?
You could put it where you'd like.
I can put it wherever I want. Okay. Tony, what are you doing?
Well, there are benefits and
I know. This is a hard one.
to
This is
both.
actually a really hard one.
Well, when you think about it, I mean the
Okay.
Gibson 3-way toggle takes up a lot of real estate.
It does.
It's a big
long.
switch.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
It's a big switch
A lot of real estate where?
on the guitar.
Yeah.
You're mad.
Oh, no.
I'm not mad.
He's not.
Compared to a...
It's about 2 inches deep.
Well, that's on a Les Paul.
Yeah.
I'm talking about on the surface.
Yeah.
You're saying it takes up a lot of real estate.
Underneath the
It's about the size of a
pick guard.
quarter.
No, buddy, on underneath.
But that's what I'm
Underneath.
asking. And he's... Okay, so you're saying inside the body, it takes up a lot of real
Inside
estate.
Inside of the body, they're
Thank
Lots of
you.
space.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, but on the other hand, the blade switch, the Fender style blade switch,
blade switch.
it's to me it's always felt more solid, but it's not always convenient.
Okay.
I think the toggle is more intuitive. So you flip it down, you're in the bridge. Flip it up, you're in the neck.
Okay.
It's not always as intuitive, I guess, with the blade.
Yeah.
So with that in mind,
Specifically on a Stratocaster for obvious reasons, but anyways.
well, you wouldn't. Well, I guess you could. The original Strats did have a 3-way switch.
That's
in them.
correct.
Yeah.
But until they decided that the 5-way was the way. But
This is even worser if you are needing...
depending,
Yeah,
unless
you
you're
gotta have nimble fingers.
If you're Eric Clapton,
You got to have nimble fingers.
You like
Okay,
those
say what
mid-
you're saying. Do the thing. Go ahead.
I can't be under this kind of pressure, Todd.
Well, I wish you would. Say it.
I'm going to go with the Gibson style 3-way toggle because it is an intuitive switch, at least for me. It may not be for everyone,
Okay.
but
It's a monster.
but I like it. But it it has limitations too. There's only really one way to wire it, and whereas
Which gives you only one way to rock. Okay, anyways. That was a bad joke.
No, that's what
Wow.
Sammy,
Forgive me,
Sammy
everyone.
Hagar said that.
Yes. Okay, go, you're wiring.
yeah, I was just going to say there's alternative wirings to the blade switch too.
That's true.
But I mean, if we're just doing basic 2-pickup guitar,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the toggle.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to mix it up, and I'm going to go to Justin.
I will have to say the Fender switch.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just easier, It's just right there. You can control it with your pinky.
uh-huh.
You don't need to give too much. And then I think just the way that it glides over from one setting to another, I always felt like the Fender or the Gibson switches were just kind of like, I don't know, how do you put it?
Better?
We're like, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
I'm kidding,
It
man.
feels like the Fender switches. I would say it feels like a light switch,
Mhm.
if that
Yeah,
makes
okay.
sense.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Jared.
I'm going to go 9 times out of 10, I'm going to pick up a Gibson guitar. But this time I'm going to go with the Fender Switch. I'm going to tell you why. Because, yes, they did come originally on Stratocasters and Telecasters. Fender used them. What guys were doing were on the Stratocaster, you could actually find the in-between the bridge in the middle or, the middle and the neck, which would be 2 and 4 positions if you had a 5-way. And you can actually contact both of those terminals at the same time and get that,
Quack.
get the quack. So that's a little old trick that, not very many people know about. It's kind of inconvenient. And if you have a really good, it is. And if you have a really good,
inconvenient,
it is. If you have a really good switch, it's not as easy. It's got to be old and wore out. But CRL makes a really good, 3-way switch. So I would go with that. Just, and what Tony said earlier, there, you can get crafty with those and creative with blending and doing different kind of switching and whatnot.
As an
Wiring up
addendum
different-
to my choice as a pickguard maker, I'd rather drill a 1/2-inch hole
I can imagine.
versus a slot any day of the week.
Yeah, a slot
Yeah.
with two holes.
With 2 holes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, let's go to David.
I would say the Fender switch.
Okay.
blade switch. Yep.
Yeah, the light switch. Again, I am a slave to it because I played a Telly. I remember the first time I swapped over to a Gibson, I was so lost. Like, where do I switch this thing? Having it up top. I know you guys talked about, like, it feels a location change, but I think Justin mentioned it just feels flimsier too. And I've seen that screw thing on top come unscrewed all the time for different guitars. So Fender switch is what I'll do.
All right. I'm going to go.
You're going to go with a blade switch with a ton of duct tape on it.
That is how I roll my Telecaster stuff. I do duct tape it to the bridge position. However, in this instance, I'm going to go with the Gibson style toggle, but I do favor a different position for it. So I've got a Hagstrom Viking, and it sits right in between the strings and the control and the actual controls.
Our
So it sits
juniors do
lower.
that too.
Yeah. And
okay.
so like I can flip it really easy. Wait,
Yeah.
maybe I'm thinking of my junior on that.
That's what the junior has, dude. That's where the junior star.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's what I meant. So I've got this junior. Yeah, I like that position. I was thinking that the Hagstrom had that too.
It might.
I guess not. I'm an idiot. Whatever.
Just bypass the switch.
I'll bypass the switch. Yes. Who needs a switch? Pfft. Anyways, hey everybody. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you hanging out. David, Justin, Covenant Cables, you got something to lay on our audience?
I think we do. I think we can do 50% off.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You said
I'm
5-0.
sure-
5
Yeah,
as
not,
in
fi-
one
not
half.
15, not 15, not 20, not 30. But if we do 50% off for maybe a couple weeks, then we'll just be in the shop working all the time. But we should be able to. We just want to get cables in everyone's hands.
That's right.
You
Well, you got at least 3 orders coming
Oh,
from
for
you.
sure.
Yeah, for darn sure. Yeah.
Wow.
That is outstanding.
Cable time.
All right, so the code would be guitar knobs, no spaces. Caps doesn't matter, but if you want, you can shout it out, guitar knobs. And you just put that at checkout. So you go to our website, click on the signature cables category. It has all our instrument cables, our signature instrument cables, and it also has even the SP400 plugs. Those are available too.
Whoa.
The custom patches. Not the plugs themselves. So, yeah, go ahead and knock yourselves out. It's guitar knobs as the coupon code at checkout. You go online.
Killer.
So it's just covenantcables.com.
Excellent. Okay, awesome. People, they're giving you 50% off on these handmade cables. That is, I think, officially the biggest deal we've ever had on there. And people,
Totally.
we've been really so fortunate lately. The builders have just been giving really great discounts to our audience, and I'm so grateful to the builders who are doing that, including Covenant Cables, who have really just dropped an outstanding deal. 50% off will be good for 30 days after we release the initial episode. man, make sure you go and get one of these cables. They are really nice. That is an incredibly generous gesture. So thank you guys so much for doing that.
No problem at all. We had a really good time talking about gear.
Yeah.
That's why we do it every
That's
week.
why we're here in an office.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much. So where can they find you guys?
Well, you can find us. Our probably most popular thing is Instagram. You can find us on Instagram at Covenant Cables. No spaces, just Covenant Cables, and we're on Facebook. And that's pretty much it. Our website is our go-to when you need to buy stuff, and that's covenantcables.com.
Okay, excellent. And let's see here. Tony, where can people find you?
Well, let's say you need a special pick guard, or you want to change out pickups, and
I just got 4 of them last week.
maybe you want to put a Gibson style toggle switch in something.
Okay.
I know a guy. No, go to pickguardian.com.
Okay.
That's the best place if you want to see some projects and other fun things that I've been working on. Go to Instagram under the handle pickguardian and the number 1.
Excellent. Jared.
You can find me, if you need some really good pickups, find me at brandonwoundpickups.com. I do special boutique custom pickups, and we also do vintage looking, old, relic-y, cool looking pickups to match your project.
And I also understand you do rewinds.
I do rewinds at a very fast turnaround at a very fair price.
Excellent.
And you can also find me on Instagram to see all the really cool, funky stuff that I make that I really don't have on my website. So if you are looking for anything weird or cool or new or different or whatever, look at my Instagram. Just and if you have any questions, please get a hold of me through any of those social medias.
Awesome.
Todd, where can they find you?
Todd at theguitarknobs.com. You can do that. Just drop me a note. Tony, we got one more thing to do and before we bounce out of here.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
We have to thank some very special people. You go over to patreon.com/theguitarknobs.
Mm-hmm.
There's an area there where you can find out great ways that you can help sponsor the podcast.
That's right.
At each level, there's some nice, fun giveaways that are thrown in as kind of a prize package. And as the higher the level, the more you get. But one of the biggest things is
you get to have your name read on the thing
if you are an executive producer. So without further ado, I would like to thank Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, David Wolfson, Matt Brammer, Carlos Mancha, Pete Marshall, Robin Smith, John Daly, Oliver Gonzalez, Sean Chris Kearney, John Anglin, Robert Marfleet, Darren Gregory, Gary Goodman, and Son Beckett.
Hey, Beckett.
Woohoo! Zach J. Wright, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Brad Partridge, and Doug Gann.
Hey, everybody. You guys, thank you so much for supporting our show through Patreon at, again, whatever level. We just had a whole bunch of new people sign up at the $1 and $5 level, and we're grateful for that.
Every
helps
bit
us out.
helps.
It really does. So make sure you go and check that out. Guys over at Covenant Cables, thank you guys so much for your time. It was great talking with you, and our door is open anytime you want to come through it. So make sure that you guys go check out Covenant Cables, get that special deal, and have a great guitar week, and subscribe!
Yeah.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.